Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Windows Server Lab series, where we walk through real tools used in sysadmin and help desk jobs. This is episode 5, I believe, and today we're going to be diving into group policy. Group policy is one of the most powerful and misunderstood tools in Active Directory. You'll learn how to actually use GPOs in real environments, not just theory. I'll go through all of the ins and outs in this crash course, and I'll also give you some examples that we can practice together and that you can practice on your own. Let's get into it. So what even is group policy? Group policy lets you centrally control user and computer settings across your domain. You can set policies for things all the way from security settings to mapped drives to a desktop wallpaper, pop-ups, literally anything that you want to be able to control on your client's devices or users, you can control. It works by creating these things called group policy objects, GPOs, and then we link them either at the domain level or under specific OUs. Settings apply based off this scope, the linked OU, security filtering, delegation, and then GPO hierarchy. I know these are a lot of big words to just listen to, so let's actually hop into the group policy management console and get into it. Okay, so in today's lab environment, I have a lab client that I had spun up in Azure in my last video, and I also have a lab domain controller, again, that I had spun up. My domain is lab.local. So in order to get to the group policy management console, I'm going to go to my domain controller, and I'm going to type in group policy, and it should pop up group policy management. So here I can see this is what the console looks like. This is how I can look through all of GPOs. I actually have to expand out this forest lab.local and then domains, and I have lab.local here. I'm going to expand that out. Here I can see I automatically have created a default domain policy. This is being linked here at the lab.local, and it is applying to everybody automatically. I have these folders, I have my OUs, and then I have this folder that's group policy objects. This is going to be like my playground where I'm actually creating GPOs. If I expand it out, you can see I have default domain controllers policy and then default domain policy by default. If I wanted to actually create and edit them, I can right click on them and I can click edit, or I can right click on group policy objects and I can click new to create a new GPO. We'll do that a little bit later. First, I want to just go through all of the basics. Again, I have these OUs and I have my full domain. I can link GPOs at the domain level, so I can right click up here and link an existing GPO, or I can link them at the OU level, like my branch 1 OU. I could link a GPO, so it's just filtering for that branch. It's just applying at that branch level. And then I've got a couple of other important things. So I'm just going to go ahead and right click on group policy objects, and I'm going to create a new test GPO. When I click on my test GPO, I can see I have a couple of tabs. I have this security filtering tab. This is going to be very useful. Note, by default, it has authenticated users under security filtering. This means that by default, this GPO will not filter anything. It will apply to all users and computers in the domain. However, it doesn't actually apply anywhere until I have it linked. Again, if I have it linked at an OU or if I have it linked at this lab level, that's when it's actually going to start applying. So when I'm testing out a GPO, I'm usually going to test it out with just one person or one computer. So what I will usually do is, let's just say I'm going to test it out on my guy, Tom Brady. I will add, and I'm going to go ahead and type in Tom. It's automatically going to put Tom Brady because he's the only Tom in my organization. And I will just remove authenticated users. It's going to give me some warnings. I don't care about the warnings. Okay, now it's just security filtering for Tom. So if I were to link this even at the domain level, it would still only filter for Tom. That's pretty important. Security filtering is like the gatekeeper of GPO. It says who's actually allowed to come in, read this GPO, and maybe even get it applied. Then there's kind of a second gatekeeper to GPO that's more like an ID checker, really. It says, hey, you're let in, but do you actually get to read this GPO? Do you actually get to have it applied? And that second gatekeeper is going to be here under this delegation tab up at the top. So I'm going to click delegation. Here I can see I have those specified groups: domain admins, enterprise admins, system, Tom Brady. And I can go down here in the bottom right, which I'm actually covering it up. I'm going to move myself to the middle just for a sec. Down here at the bottom right, I have this advanced button. I can click advanced, and I can see what these individual groups actually get in terms of this GPO. So if I go to Tom, notice he gets read for this GPO. It's checked allow. And if I scroll down a little bit, we have this apply group policy that's also allow. So if I put him in security filtering, by default, he reads it and he gets it applied to him. If I go to domain admins, on the other hand, you see they can read it, they can write it, they can create child objects, all of that type of stuff, but they don't get group policies applied by default. I would have to actually purposefully apply it to them if I wanted to. I'm not going to right now. Okay, so those are my two kind of layers of security filtering in GPO. Very important. We have our gatekeeper here with security filtering, and then we have our ID checker here with delegation and our advanced tab. If I actually want to see what a GPO does, I can go up here and click settings. It's going to generate this report. That's fine. And if this GPO were doing anything, I just set it up, so it's not doing anything yet. But if it were, I would have a show all option here, and I can see what it's actually doing. I can see computer configuration enabled, user configuration enabled. There's not actually anything set up yet. So let's get that rolling. Let's start with a basic computer-based setting, disabling the domain firewall on lab machines. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create my new group policy object. So I'm going to go here, right-click on this group policy objects, and I'm going to click new. And we'll go ahead and just call this disable domain firewall. Okay, let's click on our disable domain firewall. Again, we're getting a warning. That's totally fine. Still nothing is set up yet. If I right-click on the GPO over here on the left side, and I click edit, here's where I can actually edit and create and do the different parameters of my GPOs. I want you to note one thing before we get rolling with this. GPOs are either computer configuration or user configuration. So it's either going to apply to computers in the domain or users. That's important with security filtering too. If you're security filtering just for a computer, but you have a user configuration GPO, it's not going to work right. It's not going to apply to the computer. So there are these two sections of it. This example that I had given you, the disabled domain firewall, is a computer configuration GPO. Now, in terms of how to actually set up the GPO, like whether it's under policies or preferences, there are some differences. Preferences are things that users can change back if they want to. Policies are user doesn't get an option. In this situation, I'm going to say the user does not get an option. So I'm going to go computer config, policies, Windows settings, and then security settings. Now, again, I want you to note there's a ton of options. There's a million different settings in Windows that can be set up. Nobody's going to expect you to remember where to exactly go to do every exact thing for every GPO. Even when I was preparing for this video, I just looked up, hey, give me an example computer configuration GPO and let's get it rolling. ChatGPT tells me, okay, go to computer config, policies, Windows settings, security settings, and then we're going to Windows Defender Firewall. Let's go to our Windows Defender Firewall. Okay, and if I double click here on this Windows Defender Firewall part, I'm gonna have to drag this out just a little bit so I can see it better. I can see I have a domain profile, private profile, and a public profile. I'm gonna just click here where it says Windows Defender Firewall Properties. Here it shows we just don't even have this configured at the domain level. So a user could set it however they wanna set it. Again, we said that for our domain firewall profile, we were gonna change that firewall state to off. Inbound and outbound connections, we're just gonna go ahead and leave not configured in this case. Let's go ahead and click OK. So now we've changed a setting in GPO. We see Windows Defender Firewall is off for the domain profile. This probably isn't something you would actually want to do like in your production environment. This is just an example of a computer configuration GPO. So we've set that. Once we've applied it and clicked OK, I can just go ahead and close out of this little editor screen. I'm going to go ahead and go up here in the top left of the screen and I'm going to click refresh. Now notice I actually have some things in this GPO. I have computer configuration, policies, Windows settings, security settings, this, and it shows that we turned it off. Firewall state off for the domain profile. We really didn't do anything else. Windows Defender Firewall, protect all network connections, disabled. Okay, let's go back to our scope. Again, our scope by default is set to be authenticated users, but I don't want to roll this out to all of my users. I want to just test it out on my one user, and really it's going to be my one user's PC because this is a computer configuration. So I'm going to go ahead and remove authenticated users as I always do when I'm testing. Okay, that sounds good. Let's go to Active Directory and find Tom Brady's PC, my client PC that I had just joined to the domain. It's in its default computers OU. I'm going to go ahead and grab it out of there and move it to my computers OU because again, that's best practice. We're okay with that. Note my computer name is lab client. That's my client VM's name. If you look over here on this screen, I have my lab client. Here I'm in my lab domain controller. And today I am doing this lab using RDP as opposed to Azure Bastion because I want to show you guys how we can run GP update / force and apply these to users and computers. Okay, so my computer that I'm going to filter for in GPO is lab client, lab-client. Note by default, nothing comes up. That's because I'm looking for users, groups, or built-in security principal. I need to click object types and check computers. Okay, so now I can look for lab client, check the names. Looks like we found one. Okay, so now this is security filtered for my lab client. I also need to link it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take this GPO and I'm going to link it here at the branch 1 level. So I'm going to right click on branch 1. I'm going to click link an existing GPO and I'm going to click on our disable domain firewall. Okay. Notice now here in links, it shows there. If I were to expand out branch here on the left side, it would show there as well, disable domain firewall. So it's linked at the branch level. It's security filtering for lab-client. Now this GPO is live for lab-client. Let's test it out. I'm going to head over to my client. I'm going to pull up a command prompt, and I'm going to run the following command, gp update / force. This is a command that you're going to see very often in IT. Okay, so it says computer policy and user policy have both updated successfully. Now I can run this other command, gp result /r, and then I can go with the space /scope with a colon computer. That's what that command's gonna look like. Let's check it out. This is gonna give me like a little report. A gp/r, gp result /r is gonna give me a little report of which GPOs are actually applying. If I look here, I can see applied group policy objects. My default domain policy is, of course, applied by default. And then I have this other one, disable domain firewall. Let's check it out and go verify that it's actually working. If I type in firewall, it'll take me here to my Windows Defender. Domain network, firewall is off. Private, it's on by default. Public, it's on by default. This would have been on if I didn't have that GPO turning it off. So this is a GPO applying to a computer configuration. All right, so we've got some important steps. Let's pull up the notepad. So I've got first, I create the GPO. Second, I make sure that it's filtering correctly. I need it to be filtering for the right devices or users in order for it to actually work. Third, on the client device, on my test device, I'm gonna run the following command, gp update /force. That's gonna make that device check in with the domain controller and get its right policies. And then fourth, in order to check that it's actually getting the policy, I can run gp result /r, and then I can either run scope computer, or if it's a user configuration, I can run user and then their username. So in this case, like it would be user tom.brady, but we'll get to that in a second. We just did our computer config. So let's say, hey, now my GPO is set up. It's working the way I want to. I test, I see everything looks good. Now I'm ready to roll this out to everybody. I can just add in here authenticated users. And once I add authenticated users, I can go ahead and remove lab client because I don't need that to have separate permissions. I'll just head and remove it. That includes all users and computers in the domain. So this is now live for everybody in my entire domain. That's a safe way of testing a GPO. One user or computer. Once you're sure that it's doing what you think it is and you're not exploding things, roll it out for the entire domain. Now let's take a look at a user config GPO because we have those two things. We're gonna go ahead and try hiding the control panel. So I'm gonna right click on my group policy objects again, create a new one. I'm gonna call this hide control panel. I'll right click on it, I'll edit it. And again, how do I know what settings to do? I ask GPT, I ask Google, I ask whatever, Stack Overflow. You ask whatever you need to on the internet and you figure it out. It's very easy. So my GPT says this is a user configuration, policies, administrative templates, control panel. And then I've got this here, prohibit access to control panel and PC settings. Let's double click it. I'm gonna go ahead and just enable it. All I gotta do is click OK. If I look over here, now I can see all of these by default say no, except this one says enabled. I've already clicked OK. I'm gonna check out of this, click on settings. I'll double click on my GPO, hide control panel, click on settings. And then if we look, I can see my user config, policies, admin templates, control panel, prohibit access to control panel and PC settings, enabled. Okay, how am I actually gonna filter this out? Let's just test with Tom Brady. He's my test user. Go back to scope. Notice by default, it has authenticated users. I'm gonna go ahead and click add, Tom Brady, remove authenticated users. Don't worry about the warnings that we get. And then I'm gonna go ahead and link this. Let's link it at the domain level this time. The real difference is that if I link it at the domain level, it's gonna apply to Tom Brady regardless of what OU he's in. If I just link it at the branch OU, it's only gonna apply to him if he's in that OU. So I'm gonna go right click, link an existing GPO, hide the control panel, and okay. So now I have my security filtering is Tom Brady, my linking is at the lab level. This should be live for Tom Brady. So let's get Tom logged in our client VM. Close out of this. We don't need to save it. Actually gonna just close out of the entire RDP session here. I'm gonna pull up my lab client RDP, and instead of lab admin, I'm gonna go lab /tom.brady, and then I'll put his password. Again, I created Tom Brady's user object in AD. Check it out. If I go to AD, my users, I already created him and I already gave him a password. That's how I'm logging in with his domain credentials. So now I'm logging into this VM as Tom Brady using his domain credentials. Let's continue. Check it out. Logging in as Tom Brady. Please note, there's actually something you need to do in order to be able to do this that I didn't tell you guys, and I'm going to tell you now so that you can also log in as these domain users. As an admin on that client VM, I need to go to local users and groups again, like I did in that past video. And our MSC command for that is lusrmgr.msc. You can also just look up local users and groups. I just remembered this for whatever reason. So we'll click on it, click on my groups. And here I have this group, remote desktop users. I can double click it. I have to actually add that user in there because I'm accessing this VM using remote desktop. That's not set up default for a regular domain user. If Tom Brady were a domain admin, it would be set up for him automatically. He would automatically be able to RDP in. But I actually had to add him to this group in order for me to be able to log into this VM using Tom Brady's domain credentials. Hope that makes sense. You see how this domain credential, local credential, on the network, off the network type stuff is super important in understanding IT infrastructure and how things work together. Okay, so I'm now logged in as Tom Brady. I'm going to pull up a command line, CMD, and I'm going to go ahead and run gp update/force. This is me saying to the computer, check with the domain controller, get all of your proper policies, and apply them. Look, it says computer policy update has completed successfully. User policy update has completed successfully. So let's go ahead and just run gp result/r. This is going to get me my settings. Now, of course, I didn't plan for this, but I'm having a little hitch here. I'm seeing Tom Brady's not getting this group policy object applied. Let's go figure out why. I'm going to head over back to my domain controller, just make sure everything looks right with this. If I click hide control panel, double click on it, scope, it is linked at the lab.local level. It is filtering for tom.brady at lab.local. Let's just try another round of group policy update just for good measure. GP update/force. Okay, computer and user, and let's go GP result/r user Tom Brady/F. I'm still not getting my group policy applied. If I check my delegation tab on the domain controller, I can see advanced down here in the bottom right. Again, I'm covering it. Down here in the bottom right, I can see Tom.Brady. I click on him. He's got read, and he's got apply group policy for this GPO. Okay, so I've been looking at a bunch of things over the last 10 minutes working with ChatGPT, and I can't figure out why this isn't working. So I'm going to continue troubleshooting together here. I'm just going to go ahead and log out of this and log back in. Okay, so I'm pulling up my RDP session again. lab/tom.brady. When we log into a domain computer, user configuration is supposed to be applied. Computer configuration is supposed to be applied. Let's run a CMD. GP update/force as always. Okay, my computer and user is good. Okay, so group policy was just being goofy. I went ahead and went back here and just added in security filtering authenticated users again. Not something that you would usually do in a production environment because you're not going to send this out to all authenticated users. But I went back to my client VM and I ran GP update/force and then GP result again. And here I can see that my applied group policy object is appearing hide control panel. So that's very weird. Let's try just changing it back to Tom and see if that works. Okay, so here I figured out something useful. Discussing with ChatGPT, I found that it's not enough just to have Tom in security filtering. I also have to have Tom's PC in security filtering. So let's go pull up that client. Oops, I got a filter for computers as well. And I've seen this many times in production as well. I just didn't remember it, to be honest with you. Lab client. Okay, so now Tom and lab client have security filtering. Note, I tried just doing Tom again and it didn't work. Basically, the computer also needs to have permissions to read the GPO as well as Tom. So in this case, I have Tom and the computer in filtering. Let's run a GP update/force. Okay, so I have computer and user policies have both completed successfully. Let's run GP result/R. User is Tom.Brady. Here I should be able to reconcile that I have that applied group policy object hide control panel. So important note, I got to do a little bit troubleshooting while I was actually making the video. We need to have the computer object and the user object if it's going to be user config. There's a way that I can reconcile this. I can head back over to my domain controller. I can go add domain, and here I can choose this group, domain computers, and just add that into security filtering. I'll remove that specific client. So now I have all of the computers have the ability to read this GPO. It's still a user GPO, so it only applies to the actual users that are in security filtering. So Tom's computer can read the GPO, and Tom can have it applied to him because he's in security filtering. And if I go back over to my client and I try and pull up control panel, this operation has been canceled due to restrictions in effect on this computer. Please contact your sysadmin. So you can see we can granularly control things that people can and can't do, and we can control a lot more. All right, we've gone over a lot of things. I've actually done some troubleshooting while making this video and learned a couple of things that I probably should have known. Group policy is super powerful. It's not necessarily something that you're going to be doing or changing at tier 1 or at a help desk position. But if you can understand how group policy applies, where group policy is working or not working, or applying or not applying, or what it's actually doing, you can be an absolute monster in IT because you can control anything. When someone reaches out to me and says, hey, I want to change this organization-wide, I almost never say no. I know that I can do it with group policy. I want to give you some more practice examples that you can do with group policy now that we have this environment spun up. Okay, so here are some practice things that you can do. Set up a desktop wallpaper. And these are going to stretch your brain thin. Like, you're going to have to understand how things connect together, where you're actually putting the desktop JPEG and all of that type of stuff. We already did our hide the control panel. We can remove that run command from the start menu, prevent access to the command prompt, something you'll probably do, redirect the documents folder, maybe. And then in terms of computer configs, you could do things like setting a legal notice, enable time zone restriction, disabling USB devices is something that you're going to do very common as well. And then turn off automatic restart after updates is also useful. Some good practice exercises for you guys. Okay, this has been a longer episode, but I hope that you guys have found it useful. I appreciate the support so far. This has been super fun to make, and honestly, I've learned some things along the way as well. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. I respond to every single one. And if you want more real-life IT content, drop a subscription. That helps me a ton and also helps this video reach more people with the algorithm. Thanks so much. Be safe, be smart, make some good decisions, and good luck with those group policy objects.